What if the police were able to arrest people for crimes before they even committed them? Now, if you're anywhere near my age, then you probably know about a movie called Minority Report. In that movie, they used these like gifted individuals, these psychics, they called them precogs, to determine when a crime would happen before it actually happened. The movie's actually really good, and if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. But it's just a movie, right? It's like, not like anything like that would happen in real life, right? Wrong. Not only did it happen, but it is currently happening, and it probably will continue to happen. Greetings everyone, I'm John Lang. Welcome back to my channel. Before we jump into this story, I'd like to remind everyone, please hit the subscribe button. We're so close to 100K. Also, don't forget to pick up a copy of the Civilian Rights Hand Guide if you're interested. You can find a link to that down below. So let's dive right in. So let's talk about the concept of predictive policing. Predictive policing basically works like the police develop a database of people based on like offenses that they may have committed, and then they try to use that data to basically forecast crime. I use the word forecast here intentionally because you could easily draw a parallel between what they're doing and what a weatherman does. So just like a weather forecast, a crime forecast just takes in a bunch of data, analyzes it, and then makes a prediction based on that. And we all see how reliable the average weather forecast is. I mean, I think that being a weatherman is probably the only job where you can be wrong 90% of the time and still keep your job, aside from being a cop maybe. But seriously, that's a joke. That's a joke. The main point that I'm trying to make is that laws and the interpretation of law is not as easy to quantify into a data set as people want it to be. But that's not necessarily the moral of today's story, and we could probably do a video on predictive policing alone. And it's really easy to point fingers at certain technologies and just call them bad. But really, the issue is how people use technologies. Today's story is not so much about how technology is bad, but it's about how technology can be used to do bad things when the wrong people have access to it. There's also some kind of lesson about like authority to technology or something like that sprinkled along in here too. But I'm just gonna focus on telling this story, and you're free to draw your own conclusions about it. So way back in 2011, a man named Chris Nocco became the sheriff of Pasco County, Florida. Is that how you say his name? Look that up. So back in 2011, a man named Chris Nocco became the sheriff of Pasco County, Florida. At the time, Nocco was just 35 years old, and he was relatively new to law enforcement. His appointment was pretty controversial because he didn't have any law enforcement experience, and a lot of people thought that he really only got the position because he was like well connected with the local Republican Party. But he had a vision to change the department into a data-driven, intelligence-led policing apparatus. The sheriff pitched this as a way to move beyond reactive policing, which is like what we have today, where police respond to crimes. And he wanted to move in a direction that was more proactive policing, where the police stop crimes before they even happen. Not only was this like an attractive thing to politicians and voters who were, tired of crime, but the sheriff's initiative was granted a $95,000 federal grant to get this thing off the ground. And with that money, Nocco assembled a team and started building a data system. These analysts would scour everything. They would look at people's arrest records, where they last lived, and even in some cases, they would look at their social media activity, and they would build these profiles. So Nocco wanted specifically to know the names of people who were the most likely to commit crimes. He wasn't really interested in targeting hotspots of crime or particular areas of a city. He wanted to know about specific people. By 2012, the program was in full swing, and the department was like full steam ahead developing their databases. And by 2015, the intelligence-led policing division, which is what Sheriff Nocco called it, had completed its initial stages. Some of the Pasco County residents were deemed prolific offenders based on an algorithm that assigns scores according to their criminal history. And you would get points like for every little misstep that you did. Like if you had a traffic ticket or a probation violation, that would add points to your profile in the algorithm. And basically, once you became a prolific offender and were put on this list, that essentially gave deputies the green light to harass you constantly. I mean, deputies would visit these people's homes all the time, and it wasn't just like a knock on the door kind of visit. They got out of control a lot of times. It seemed like they were just basically designed to make people's lives uncomfortable. In fact, Sheriff Naco said himself to the Council of Neighborhood Associations in 2012 that the point of the program was to, quote, bother criminals. So during these checks, the deputies were officially told to basically look for anything that you can do to give them tickets, make sure that they're doing everything right, and they wanted these people to feel as though there was some type of pressure being pushed on them from the Pasco County Sheriff's Office. They wrote these people tickets for like absolute nonsense, like having overgrown grass and not having letters on your mailbox. I mean, come on. The Tampa Bay Times, who basically busted open this whole story, reported that there were about 1,000 people who were on that list and who were the target of constant harassment. So to give you an idea of like what these people had to deal with, let's just go over a couple of their stories. So Rio Rajeski was only 15 years old when he was labeled a prolific offender for getting one charge for trying to steal a moped out of someone's driveway. Now look, I'm not defending anyone stealing a moped out of anyone's driveway. That's not something that's good to do. But I also don't think that that categorizes you as a prolific offender. So Rio was added to the list in September of 2019. And between that time and January of 2020, which is only 4 months, the Pasco County Sheriff's Office visited his home at least 21 times.
I'll give it the good old knowledge knock first on the off chance he's like sleeping here or some shit. Sheriff's Office.
You need Rio?
Yep.
Oh, she's nice, I promise.
Hey, bro.
Just come and say hi to Rio.
Is he home?
Yeah, no, he's with his mom.
You need Rio?
Yeah.
Officer want to talk to you, Rio.
We're just here to say hi to Rio.
Hey, Rio, what's going on, buddy?
Mind we chit chat for a couple minutes? Happy New Year.
2020.
These visits often took place in the middle of the night at random times and just disrupted the flow of the household and basically were overall annoying and uncalled for.
We're the ones that know the most because we're the ones that deal with you guys. So we know that you don't deal drugs, and we know you only have this one charge on you right now, but we also know that you associate with these clowns, like he said, that do stupid stuff all the time. And so, unfortunately, like I said, guilty by association is the word of the day, or the phrase of the day. So stop being in police reports that have these other kids' names in it, and you'll probably stop seeing us, right?
We can't tell you who to hang out with,
But we can tell you what's going to happen if you hang out with certain people. We'll be coming to your door to have chit-chats with you.
At one point during the visits, Rio was at his mom's office doing homework when the officers came, so they decided to just harass his sisters instead. This next clip really illustrates like how the program actually played out on a practical level.
Hey, Kaylee. Come talk to me again. If you want to talk to me through the window, that's fine, but come talk to me for a moment. Kaylee! Kaylee! You're about to have some issues. Come up to the window and talk to me if you want to keep the door closed.
What? Okay, well,
How
if he's not here, then show us that he's not in his room.
Okay.
But I've already said that he's not in his room. I'm not
I
like...
have to see for myself.
Do you want me to open up his window or something?
No, I need to walk through here. You're 19 years old, correct?
Why does that matter?
Because you're an adult and you live here.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean we have to stay
Okay, you don't live here, so you can shut up and go back there, okay?
What are you talking to her like that for?
Because you're interrupting me while I'm trying to talk to his sister right now. Are you his brother or sister or his mom?
I'm his sister.
Oh, great. How old are you? How old are you?
22.
Okay, so you can let us walk through right now and make sure he's not here and in compliance with his probation, or I can stroke both of you guys a citation for not having numbers on the house. What do you want to do?
What does that even mean? Numbers on the house?
You don't have an address on either the mailbox or this house.
Is that a blackmail? Yes, we do. We have our address on our mailbox right now.
Mailbox?
On the other side.
No, I'm informing you what's going on because right now you're obstructing my investigation for a probation check.
Do you have to walk through the house to see if
Yes,
he's here?
I do. Because he's supposed to be here. It's 8 o'clock at
You don't
night.
have to be rude about it. Make sure he's not here. Okay, I know that, but I'm saying,
Okay.
we can let you in if you like. You have a very strong attitude.
Yeah.
I don't care if you do because he's very rude.
Okay, sure. I'll walk in. Thank you.
He's not here. He's not here. But I don't understand why you guys are banging on the door and making a scene in front of
Oh, the Pasco County deputies did not stop there. One time they showed up at the car dealership that his mom worked at. Another time they showed up at one of Rio's friends' house. And they even went to check his gym to see if he had signed in. Like, that's how hardcore they were monitoring this guy. A 15-year-old kid. They even fined Rio's mom $2,500 for having chickens in her backyard, which is about the most authoritarian thing I can possibly think of. Who would issue a fine to a single mother raising 2 children for having a source of food on their own property? Is this even America anymore? I mean, what the fuck is that? All right, so then we have the story of Sheila Smith, whose teenage son was assigned the prolific offender status. For months, deputies would show up at her house at all hours of the night looking for her son.
We just came from Tampa, and that's where he is with my mom.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Deputy Ortiz. I was looking for Vaughn. Is he available?
No, he's in Tampa.
He lives in Tampa?
Yeah.
Hi, how can I help you?
Hello.
Hi, how can I help you?
I just showed up to see if I could talk to Vaughn.
He's in Hillsborough.
He's
gonna
gonna
be there for like a little while.
No,
he's gonna be there, period.
Good morning. How are you? Does Vaughn Smith live here?
The problem was that her son was at his grandmother's house because he was in court-ordered house arrest in a different county. But despite informing the deputies of this multiple times, they just continued to harass her and her husband.
The court is aware of what Vaughn is. The Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office have all his information. He's already in a controlled and supervised environment.
Okay.
He has a probation officer and everything. He can't leave Hillsborough County.
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to get y'all to understand.
No, see, the issue is, right, it's not here to harass you, but basically
But that's kind of what it seems like. It's almost 2 years now.
That's crazy. See, that's what's aggravating. Nobody updates this stuff.
And during one of the visits, they even handcuffed her husband and put him in the back of a patrol car, and then later let him go and claimed that they thought he was his brother, despite having visited the house a bunch of times. Unfortunately, we don't have footage of that particular incident, but it just goes to show that there's a bunch of collateral damage in these intelligence-led policing efforts. In September of 2016, a woman named Tammy Howman was questioned about a dirt bike that deputies thought her son might have bought with stolen money. Tammy was in her car when the deputy first approached and tried to talk to her, but she quickly informed him that she did not want to speak to him without an attorney and just drove off. The deputies followed her and then stopped her for allegedly not wearing a seatbelt and then arrested her in front of her 7-year-old child.
You just step out of the car.
I'm not getting out of the car!
You are under arrest. You have to get out of the car. Yes, you are.
Tammy was charged with resisting arrest, battery on an officer, and she was also charged for allegedly giving false information about her son. Not sure what that's all about. But what's interesting is that when the deputy was transporting Tammy back to the police station, he laid out plain and simple how this program worked.
The policy of the agency, I'll explain it to you so it makes sense. If people have themselves or their people that live in the house are committing crimes and victimizing the community, then the direction we receive from our sheriff's office from the top down is to go out there and every possible violation that person commits to enforce it upon them. So we have people like code enforcement specialists, traffic enforcement specialists, DUI specialists.
Family that had nothing to do with that.
Well, that's not totally true because
Because who was affected with it? I was. You came after the homeowner meeting.
right. Right.
That's a whole separate thing.
The goal.
You brought me into it.
Right, but you understand that when it's a child like that, our goal is to get you to do something to keep your kid from stop committing crime. You get what I'm saying?
He has yet to be convicted.
I know you probably feel like you're targeted, and I would have no other response than to tell you that that was probably the case whenever whatever happened with that code enforcement thing. I don't know. I'm quite sure somebody said this particular household has somebody who's a criminal living at it. Please go there and make sure there's no violations.
But that's harassment.
I don't think it is.
My house because I didn't have numbers on my mailbox, but you went into my neighbor's yard and took pictures of my backyard.
I did.
mean, that's strictly harassment right there.
Tammy was released on bail not long after her arrest, thankfully. But 2 years later, while she was in the middle of fighting the charges, the deputies paid her another visit.
Definitely want to make sure you're read for this one. Thank you very much.
Not here.
You know where it's at?
I don't.
You still on probation? You still on probation?
Yeah.
You are?
Yeah.
Alright. What if we came in and checked your house out, please?
Excuse me. Come on in.
Whoa.
Come on in.
Put that baby.
Get out of the house.
Let go.
Take that child right now.
Get out of the house.
Take the baby right now. No.
Go to
Take
the
that
house.
kid right now. No. Take the kid or you go for obstruction
Go to
too.
the house.
All right, look, now admittedly, smacking a deputy with your screen door is probably not the best thing to do while you're on probation and actively fighting charges against you. But to be fair, I don't think that Tammy expected the door to open that fast with the force that she applied to it, and I don't think she intended to hurt the officer with it. Nonetheless, she was charged with felony battery on a police officer for this, and because she was already on probation, she was ineligible for bail this time. She was in jail for 76 days before eventually taking a plea deal so that she could be home in time for Christmas with her kids. And these are just 3 of the stories of the nearly 1,000 people who were on this list. Not to mention all the people who were harassed simply for being around or associated with the people on the list. As the years went on, the Pasco County Sheriff's Office started taking some heat for the program. The residents of Pasco County were sick of being harassed. Even some of the deputies in the Pasco County Sheriff's Office started to question the legality and morality of the program. Former Lieutenant Chris Stames resigned from the department and filed a federal lawsuit against the department for what he says was retaliation against him for showing disdain for the type of programs that were going on inside the department, like the intelligence-led policing that we're talking about today. Former Captain James Steffens also resigned from the department and filed a federal lawsuit against them for racial discrimination, among other things. So by 2020, the Tampa Bay Times had blown this whole thing wide open and exposed everything that was going on with this whole intelligence-led policing, and it was picked up by the mainstream media and became a national story for a while. So the Pasco County Sheriff's Office basically had no choice but to respond, and that's what they did by issuing a 30-page response. And their response was directly to the Tampa Bay Times and all of their accusations. So in their response, they showed all this data about how there had been this decrease in larcenies and burglaries and auto thefts. But the Tampa Bay Times quickly debunked that claim and showed that the Pasco County's decline in property crimes was basically the same as the surrounding major counties. Not only that, but among those different counties, Pasco County was the only one that had seen an increase in violent crime. And that was the dagger that the Tampa Bay Times drove into the heart of this bullshit program. In 2021, 4 residents of Pasco County filed a federal lawsuit against the Pasco County Sheriff's Office and were represented by the Institute of Justice. And of course, they alleged that the program violated their constitutional rights. So one hilarious aspect of this is that the policy manual, the official manual for this program, specifically outlined and promoted the idea of stopping crime before it happened using analytics and data and AI and algorithms. But as the lawsuit heated up in 2023, Sheriff Noko was quoted saying, "As the Pasco County Sheriff's Office has consistently maintained, we do not and have never engaged in any programs or techniques that are in any way, shape, or form predictive policing. I'm sure you can see how these two things directly contradict each other. So one of the major criticisms of this program is the fact that it targeted children. The Tampa Bay Times estimated that 1 in 10 people on the list were underage. It's almost as if they were dedicating resources to ensuring that the next generation of kids would hate cops. This is basically the exact opposite of community policing, and I don't see a place in our society for anything that's predictive policing related. So to draw it all back around, in December of 2023, the sheriff's office settled that lawsuit I mentioned earlier for $105,000, which is not that much in my opinion. Should have been more. Way more. But on the bright side, the program was officially shut down and deemed unconstitutional. But that doesn't mean that this whole idea of intelligence-led policing is dead and gone. And the Pasco County Sheriff's Office was not the only police department to utilize like a strategy like this. LAPD, NYPD, New Orleans Police Department, Chicago Police Department. There have been departments all over the place, all over the country, that have implemented similar or exact copies of programs like this. Most of them have failed and been utterly crushed by public pressure, scrutiny, and lawsuits. But some of them do still exist. So for example, the NYPD still uses a system that it created called the Domain Awareness System. So this system is more area-based, and it supposedly uses all these data points like criminal history, crime past, a bunch of different types of analytics to assign officers to specific hotspots at specific times. It doesn't target specific people directly anyway. The department has been very shady about giving up any details about how their system actually works, but this is an example of how algorithmic policing is still being used today. Call me old-fashioned, but you know, I'd prefer it if the police would just stick to responding to crimes than trying to proactively prevent them. I mean, a lot of them are already bad enough at figuring out crimes after they happen. I can only imagine what would go wrong trying to prevent a crime before it happened. So hopefully it's clear by now, but just to all the law enforcement leadership out there, we don't need predictive policing. We don't need proactive policing. We just need police to do the job that they're supposed to do accurately, and then everything would be fine. We don't need technological innovations to solve our policing problem. What we need are cultural changes and appropriate training programs, real practical things that could make an actual difference. So before we wrap this up, let's give a big shout out to the Tampa Bay Times. They basically single-handedly brought this program to its knees, and that's what journalism is all about. You wouldn't believe the links that they went through to make this story a reality, and honestly, that could be a video all on its own. There are very few legacy media outlets out there still doing investigative work, and we should show our support for those who still carry that torch. The Tampa Bay Times won a well-deserved Pulitzer Prize for this investigative piece, and I highly recommend that you take the time to check out their coverage, read the other stories, and just get the full details of this one. Anyway, that's all I got for you today, ladies and gentlemen. Be sure to pick up your copy of the Civilian Rights Hand Guide so that you can be fully prepared for the era of AI policing. But for real, this can really save your ass, and it's worth checking out if you want to support the channel. Also, please subscribe. We are so close to 100K. God, look, it's waiting for a silver plaque button right there. Thank you very much for watching this video to the end. We'll see you in the next one. Cheers.